Hey, I'm Joshua and I spent the past 200 days making my dream game. In this very first devlog, you'll hear the entire story of how I turned this simple drawing into a game people love, including major setbacks but also huge achievements, ranging from hundreds of people saying my game is a ripoff and me thinking my game isn't good enough, to getting over 100,000 views, people saying they love my game, and even creating my first crowdfunding campaign. So sit back, grab your favorite snack and enjoy the video. It all started the very second I saw this video. A game about escaping a cave, I think. I just loved the idea of escaping a gigantic cave system with friends. In-game of course. So I started sketching. My first idea was this. You spawn in a randomly generated cave and have to find treasures and get to the next level. I know, simple idea, but trust me, it gets much better. So I created a new project and with that the first day of this journey began. But wait, why did I even start making this game? Well, my goal is to make a living from making games. And to get a step closer to my goal, I need to make a game that is fun. But not just that. I also have to make sure a lot of people know my game exists and somehow get money to pay for stuff like music and sound effects. The very first thing I added to this project was this tile map I bought from itch.io. Apparently this tile map was used by a very popular game and people even accused me of stealing it. But more on that in the next chapter. Anyways, I made a small platform with the tile map I stole and I added a player with a simple movement script. Oh, and I added this cave background. But this is obviously a bit boring and you can't even get out of the cave. So the idea was that the players use pickaxes to climb out, like in this game, where you play two players at the same time while being connected with a rope. I tried making the player lift himself up with a pickaxe, but I quickly realized that this mechanic doesn't fit the game idea I had in mind, because one important aspect for my idea was multiplayer. With this mechanic there isn't really a reason to play together, since you can't help each other and it would probably even make it slower. But then I got an idea that changed everything. To be honest, I don't remember how I came up with that idea, but this drawing was the first version. I made a prototype the same evening and it worked. Even though you could only shoot ropes and swing around, this was already pretty fun, but you couldn't really escape the cave just by swinging. And then this idea popped into my head and changed everything. Again. The idea was grappling hooks. They are literally perfect for this game. Now you could actually escape the cave by pulling yourself up, and there was an actual benefit when playing together, since you could pull each other out of the cave. I know this doesn't look like a grappling hook at all, but we'll get to the graphics later. When I tested this mechanic, I was like, yeah, that's the mechanic I was looking for. The game was fun with barely any content in it, and that's when you know you found the right idea. The next step was to make automatically generated caves, cause why not? At that time, Perl noise was the only method I knew for random world generation. But later in this video you'll see that I started using another method that made it a lot better. Anyways, I got the cave generator working and set the map size to basically infinity, so I can spend enough time testing my game. Yeah, testing is what I said. So the question of whether this game is worth finishing was still unanswered. But after I accidentally spent 30 minutes playing this unfinished prototype, my answer was hell yeah. So it was clear, this will become my next game. And my plan for making sure this game became a success was make a Kickstarter page to crowdfund the game and use the money to pay for things like music and sound effects. Kickstarter is a platform where you can basically sell your game before it's done, so you have money to finish the project. The special thing about Kickstarter is that it's all or nothing. That means if after 30 days the money collected is less than the funding goal, I get nothing. So this Kickstarter page would determine if I can finish this game or if the coming months of effort will be for nothing. So I had to start building a community to make this work. But wait, there's no way I'm showing this to anyone. Let's add some cool graphics first. Perfect. So first of all, let me tell you how to build a community. I have absolutely no idea. And with that in mind, I made this short about my game. The short got over 10,000 views in the first few days and then completely flatlined. But here's why I regret using this tile set I mentioned before. Apparently the same tile set was used by Geometry Dash and people even thought I stole them. And then I got this comment. But to be honest, I can't even blame this guy. At least 45 people subscribed, so I'd call this a success. Now that I knew people were interested in this game, it was time to add multiplayer and play this game with my friends. I watched some tutorials on Unity's multiplayer feature and got the movement sync working. But this looks weird. The rope isn't synced. I had to spend a few hours to understand how this whole multiplayer stuff works, but in the end I somehow managed to sink the rope with this piece of code. So since this is multiplayer, I can play with my friends now, right? Well, technically you could, but there's a big problem. Right now this is only multiplayer if you're playing on the same device, but I wanted to work over the internet, so I can send the game to anyone and play together. And for that I had to implement Relay. The cool thing about Relay is that it makes it super easy to join a server. Just enter this code and you're in. And what's even cooler is that this is completely cross-platform. That means I could join a PC player on a smartphone, or even the other way around. So before I sent this to my friend, I wanted to change the player sprites. Instead of the white rectangle, there's this dwarf, which I also bought from itch.io because I'm terrible at making character sprites. But I'd pay someone to make a unique character if the Kickstarter campaign is successful. So I sent the game to my friend and we tested it on our phones. At that point I've been working on this project for 3 weeks, and that's when I realized that this game has potential. Cause even though the game was a bit difficult, we still played for hours and improved quickly. We found some cool ways to help each other, and of course we found some bugs too. But what made the game fun was seeing how your movement became smoother and faster the more you played. I didn't have much time in the next few months, but I managed to add things like bats, dynamite. I think this made the game twice as fun, a pickaxe which destroyed rocks, and I made a bunch of shorts, and even though these didn't get as many views, the channel grew more and more, until I uploaded this video.
Okay, at this point people have watched my videos on literally everything. A smart refrigerator, a calculator, an arcade machine, and now we have someone who printed out a frame of my video on a receipt printer. Oh, and someone watched my video inside Minecraft. How?
And it got 23,000 views. When I saw this, I almost fell out of my chair, cause usually the views always start to fall off at about 10,000, but this one finally broke that barrier. As you could see in this video, the game changed. The color of the rocks changed and there are these glowing things on the walls. But that's just a small part of the changes that I'm going to show you. The reason the game changed so much was because I was preparing the game for the Kickstarter campaign, since the game just didn't have enough content to show on Kickstarter. So the first thing I changed was the algorithm that generates the cave. I was using Perl noise before, but now I'm using cellular automata. This just looks much more like a cave and kinda gives you a sense of how big this cave actually is. Another thing I added was these glowing spikes and plants. This was a huge pain to get it to work with procedural generation, but it was worth it. I even added treasure chests with 5 different rarities and a bunch of items that you can collect and equip, including 5 different guns to shoot your enemies, different sizes of magazines, different hooks that can change the length of the rope, and grappling guns, each with a different shooting strength. You can even combine these however you want. Last but not least, I added a short cutscene that plays when you first open the game. So if you're interested in what happened there, here's the story. I wasn't planning on adding a huge story to the game, but I thought a small backstory would give some meaning to why you are trying to escape the cave. Anyways, after falling down the elevator, the tutorial starts. This is just a small cave with a bunch of images telling you what to do, depending on if you're playing on mobile or on PC. So at that point, I was ready to finally make the Kickstarter campaign, but there was still one huge problem. As fun as this mechanic was, being in the same cave with nothing new to see got very boring after a while. And if I didn't want the Kickstarter campaign to fail, I had to change that. So I had to introduce new biomes that not just change the looks of the game, but also change the way you play it and make it feel more alive. So I collected some images of caves that looked cool and took some inspiration from there. I really liked these green caves, since they looked good and offered some cool mechanics and enemies. So I bought this tile set and generated a cave from it. And I think it turned out pretty good. But it got even better when I added these light emitting plants. They just add so much life to it. Two things I wanted to add this whole time was water and vines that you could climb and swing on. And after adding these, the game looked so much better and felt much more alive. To be honest, I couldn't figure out how to make the water spawn at the correct position yet, but I'm working on it. If anyone knows a solution to this, please tell me. So the jungle cave already made the game much more interesting. But let's be honest, seeing only 2 colors when scrolling through a Kickstarter campaign or a Steam page would be very boring. So I had to add another biome to make it look more interesting. And for this biome I had a very special idea.
Wind cave.
This cave doesn't look very special, but it's probably super fun. So I added these wind holes that can face in any direction, and it actually was fun. You can use them to your advantage or get slammed into the ground. So now we have 3 different biomes, but you might be wondering, how do you go from one biome to another? Well, my idea was making the game level based. So each biome represented a different level and you transition from one level to another by using a lift. And at the end of each level I could add a boss you have to fight to reach the lift and get to the next level. This idea made a lot of sense because the worm you see in the beginning would be the perfect boss fight. And I don't know about you, but I'd be pretty motivated to finish a level just to see what the next level has to offer. And of course, fighting a boss is pretty fun as well. The game was pretty much ready for Kickstarter, so I set up a Kickstarter page and the only thing missing was a trailer. So I spent my last 80 euros on some custom music and made a trailer. This trailer would be used for Kickstarter, Steam, the app stores and just as a simple YouTube video to hopefully get some attention on the game, so this trailer was pretty important. Everything was ready. I've worked on this for months and everything I had to do was press this button and hope for the best. So the Kickstarter page was public, but nothing happened. That's because Kickstarter doesn't just promote any game, you need to do that yourself. But I was prepared for this. I prepared a bunch of short videos and a trailer that I could upload on YouTube and TikTok. I started by uploading the trailer and a bunch of TikToks to let people know they can pre-order my game on Kickstarter or wishlist it on Steam. The videos started getting views and I actually noticed some contributions coming in. And this is where I felt like I finally made it. However, in the first week, the campaign only reached 3% of its funding goal. But when I was adding some new features into the game, like climbing edges to make your movement smoother, or this cool looking health bar, something crazy happened. Someone pledged 2,500 euros at once. And that one amazing human brought the funding percentage from 3% to 30%. At that point I thought this was a guarantee for success, but for some reason the next 3 weeks nothing happened. The campaign did not reach its goal, so I didn't have any money to invest into my game. I was very disappointed and didn't know what to do. I had about 500 subscribers that wanted to play this game and I couldn't even finish it. I had to change some things like lowering the funding goal and try again. After that failed Kickstarter campaign, I started doubting my game and my passion for the project began to fade. I just didn't really enjoy playing the game anymore, so I knew I had to change something. I really liked strategy games and I wanted to add a little bit of strategy into my game as well. And then I got this idea that revived my passion for this game. What if there are 10 checkpoints for every level that you can either activate or destroy? Every checkpoint gives you money to upgrade your tools, but if you destroy a checkpoint you get a bigger reward at the next checkpoint. This way you have to choose if you want a bigger risk on the way up by destroying checkpoints, or if you want to risk losing to the end boss because you took the smallest rewards on your way up by activating every checkpoint. I really like this concept because it adds a little bit of strategy, which is great for replayability as well. So I made the checkpoints automatically generate in a grid and added this arrow that shows you where the closest checkpoint is. And for everything else I needed some sort of menu, like for buying and upgrading tools. But first I had to make a main menu. I didn't want to make a boring UI menu, so I made this cool looking table menu with an option to join your most previous world, create new worlds, see all the worlds you've created so far and join another player. The other 2 options will be statistics and character customization. And now we've almost arrived in the present. I made another Kickstarter campaign and changed the funding goal to the absolute bare minimum amount I'd need to finish this game and pressed publish. The rest of the story is for you to shape. As soon as this video is public, you can pre-order the game on Kickstarter to get some cool rewards, and at the same time you'll help me become a full-time game developer. Oh, and you can wishlist the game on Steam. Goodbye.